Hello everyone! Today I'm doing something a bit different, a lot different. So I'm participating in the PhD tag created by the Lit Scholar. She has a YouTube channel on YouTube, and she also has an Instagram account. So she asked all of her followers and the PhD community to leave questions that you would like PhD students to answer. And so I have the list of questions that people left. I'm gonna try to answer all of the questions that I can. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. So first off, we have Francophonie, and the question left was, how do you try to maintain a quasi-healthy habits when you're overwhelmed with projects, applications, student organizations, etc.? So when I first read this question, I was thinking that I might be a lot different from what the standard norm of a PhD student is. So when I first arrived to my program, I remember my advisor telling me that you should at least put 16 hours a day into your PhD studies, but that is not something that resonates with my modus of operations, so I don't do that. Since I was in high school, I learned that yes, you can study from Monday to Friday, but on Saturday and Sunday, because in high school I was in a boarding school and we were there from Sunday to Friday. We arrived late Sunday and left early Friday midday. And so once I got in the car with my family, I left everything that was school related behind, and I didn't touch it unless I had like a really super important exam and I really needed to make and take the time to study. And so I guess what I'm saying is I separate when is my study work time and when is my family time. And so I spend time with Adam, I spend time with my cat, and I simply try as best as I can to forget that I have responsibilities. So once it's 8 o'clock at night, I forget that I have responsibilities and that I'm a PhD student, and I try to unwind and do things for myself. And that's how I maintain quasi-healthy habits. Okay, so then we have Caitlin May 24. Is that how you pronounce it? And she asks how to reset on those days when you're not feeling productive. So I tend to do a lot of do nothing days, the days that I'm so overwhelmed with all the things I need to do, and I just can't function. What I do is I take a do nothing day, and these days are mostly spent doing literally nothing. I just lay in bed and I don't do anything, and that includes not watching TV. I just lay there. But as the day progresses, I might get into Netflix or I might read a book, but I take time to simply, as the word suggests, do nothing. So I don't do anything. Okay, the next question from absolutelyelisabeth. I love that name. Okay, so she asks, how do you balance school demands against time with family and friends? I guess this is related to the previous question. I just make sure that I separate what is school or work from what is family and friends. And I tend to call my mother and she calls me. We talk to each other a lot. And I have dinner every day with Adam. I have breakfast every day with Adam. And with my friends, when I am at school, so I have a friend at school, and that sounds so weird, but yes, I have a friend at school, and every time it's lunchtime, we would sit together, find a window, because PhD student offices don't have windows for some horrendous reason. And yes, we sit by somewhere where the sunlight can reach us when it's in winter. If it's summer, we go outside and we just have lunch and talk for about an hour. And we take that break for ourselves in order to be more productive during the day. Another person asked, this was from grad perspective. Grad perspective asked, what is the one thing you wish you knew your first year of grad school? My first year of grad school, nothing comes to mind exactly, because I remember that before coming here, I made tons and tons of questions to my advisors and to the program coordinators. So I pretty much had a sense of how it was going to be. Other than that, oh yeah, maybe this. I would say that I would have liked to know exactly and precisely what were the courses that I needed to take, because I had a mishap along the way, actually last semester, when I thought I was done with my classes, but it turned out that I was missing one credit, and so I had to take a class of 3 credit, and that was not very fun at all. So I would say, and this is not for lack of me asking in the program, because I tend to ask tons of questions, but it was more of me not insisting as much. So that is something I wish I knew my first year. The other question is, what do you do when you're bored between work? That's also from grad perspective. This might sound weird, but between work, I don't recall me being bored. You see, there are either 2 options with me. I'm either loaded with tons of work, or I have nothing to do. And when I have nothing to do, I'm bored as it gets. And I usually do either Instagram or YouTube. But yeah, that is my answer, as weird as it may sound. Okay, the next question is from Albert Abadu 5634. Trying to pursue a higher degree while having so much on my plate already. Any advice? Thanks. Okay, so this is not as much as a question as it's more of give you advice. So I would say, even if you have tons of things to do, the first thing you need to do is make a list. When I was thinking of applying for a PhD, I actually said to my advisor at that time from my master's program, I want to do a PhD, and I started looking into all the programs, and I started making lists of all the things you need for each program. And once I identified the program I wanted to, I digged deeper and found all the lists of everything I needed, like GMAT or GRE, the essays, the recommendation letters. And at that time, I was pursuing my master's, trying to finish my thesis, and also working full-time. So I just managed to make that list and go one by one. The first thing is the list, because if you have that list, at least you know how to break things into shorter chunks, and so that you can email the professors from who you need recommendation letters, maybe work 1 hour or 2 on your essay, and prepare for your entrance exam, or whatever it is. So that's my advice. Make a list and break it into chunks and start working towards it. Even if it's slowly going, you will get there someday. Okay, now we have another question, or questions, from vegangrad. I love your handle, vegangrad. Okay, and the question is, what are some viable options to finance your graduate studies? For me, I asked once I arrived here if, before I arrived here, I was promised a stipend, and sadly, that's a story maybe for another time, I didn't get that stipend once I got here, so I had to use my savings for my first year. But after that, I started to get a stipend from my advisors, and I complemented that with my boyfriend who was working from distance, and I now have a part-time job, and I also tried to get as much proctoring exams and correcting exams as I can. It's not that many options in my case, because I'm in a French institution and my French is not as good as the locals, and also many of the scholarships here in Canada are destined for people who have their citizenship or are from Quebec or from Canada in general. So yeah, I would say talk to your advisors first to see what can you get, what scholarship can you get from them, and other options you may have in the department as for TAing, etc. Vegangrad also said, weigh in the pros and cons of loans, fellowships, graduate assistantships, working full-time while studying part-time. So for me, I really want to finish my PhD. I wanted to finish it before I hit 30. I'm not sure if that is something that is still possible, but it's something that I still have in mind. So I discard immediately working full-time and studying part-time. What else? The graduate assistantships, well, that's what I have with my advisors. The thing is that you need to look at what can be your income and adjust yourself to that income. So instead of, for example, for me, living in a cool apartment where I could have friends over and I have a kitchen and a living room and so on, I have this tiny apartment in which I have my bed, and my bed is next to my sofa, which is next to my bathroom, which is next to my kitchen. So it's all really compact, but I pay very low rent in comparison to other apartments. And the same goes for my spending. I try to not spend as much on clothing or anything that is not necessary. And food, we try to cook as much as we can here at home. What else? Loans. I haven't considered taking a loan here in Montreal. I did take student loans when I was in Puerto Rico with the federal government of the United States. I'm still paying those loans, but it's not as much as an average student has. I think I have about $5,000 in federal loans or something like that, and I'm paying it off, so it's less than that. It might be less than that. Anyway, yeah, loans for me, I try to avoid them as much as possible unless it is a life or death thing and I might need to consider it. Okay, next question. Muriel Ben? Okay. Ask, what do I need to consider before engaging in a PhD program? I guess you need to consider how badly do you want a PhD and define to yourself why exactly is it that you want a PhD, because this is something that will help you carry on. The PhD road is not an easy road, and I think you may know that from various PhD students online that have shared their stories and their journeys. So yeah, I would say you need to define to yourself why exactly is that you want to pursue a PhD, so that you may carry along that motto or philosophy throughout your whole PhD journey, and it will help you get through it. Okay, from Kasha Project, she wrote, love to hear the perspective of anyone who has children, a family, while pursuing their PhD. Any tips on scheduling, writing when you are not feeling motivated, and how to handle rejection would be greatly appreciated. Okay, I think this is 2 questions. So first of all, for the children or family, does the cat count? I don't know if it counts, but I don't have children. I do think I have a family, but it's not your children included family. So I am with Adam, and as I said before, I try to find time so that we can be together, because yeah, it would suck if all my day went into my PhD. But as for children, I'm afraid I cannot answer that question. I have talked to students in the PhD program who had said that it's not bad to do a PhD while having kids, but I cannot speak about that firsthand. On the second part of your question, any tips on scheduling or writing when you're not motivated and how to handle rejection? As for rejection, I'm not good at handling rejection. I'll be blunt, and I just try until I get a yes. That's my modus and my motto. I just try until I get a yes. That's my how to deal with rejection. And as for feeling motivated and writing and scheduling, I don't exactly have a schedule. I do have some days in which I know from where I want to be working. So I know that X day of the week I want to be working from the apartment, X day of the week I want to be working from grad, and another day of the week I want to be working from UQAM. So that's what I do, so that I try to change my surroundings to kind of motivate myself. And you just have to sit and do the work. I have found recently that after 5 p.m. when everyone has left the building is when I get my productivity on, but I don't tend to stay more than 8 p.m. So that's all I can say. Okay, feather in a storm, love your handle. What are some things one should bring to an accepted students recruitment event, besides the general things like clothes, etc.? What is an accepted student event? I guess this is a question for you. Here at UQAM we didn't have that, so I really don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. I think I'm gonna have to skip that question. Okay, but before I skip it, I would say definitely bring a pen and paper to take notes, or your phone with notes on it. Okay, what else? How do you balance a healthy lifestyle? I try to get exercise when I can, mostly yoga. Oh, and I have to say, like, having the Apple Watch and having the rings from the Apple Watch helps a lot to keep me in kind of maintain consciousness of how I have been throughout the week, and knowing that, hey, you need to stand up, hey, you haven't walked as much, hey, you haven't done exercise, and it will tell you. So this is one of the things. What else? Healthy lifestyle. Since I started my PhD, I switched to vegan, so that has helped a lot in terms of eating healthy things. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that a vegan diet is healthy just because it's vegan. You can still eat a crappy diet and be vegan. Like Doritos ketchup is vegan. Pringles are vegan, some of them. So lean towards fruits and vegetables. That's what I'm trying to say. Also, would be interested in what a typical day, wake up, bedtime is like, just so I'm prepared. Ooh, I think for this I would like to do a day in the life. I do have my blogs in which I show my week, but it's mostly clips, so you can check those out as in how it is. But in terms of a typical day, I usually wake up around 6 because I work from 6 to 8 from my computer at home, and afterwards I go either to UQAM or to grad, or I stay here. But before that I have breakfast, then I set up if I have to go outside to work on my PhD. I usually have lunch either with Adam or my friends, so that's about an hour of lunch. And then I continue working, and then I head back home. I try to head back home either before 5, because I hate congestion in the train. I hate having people so close to you that you can hear their breathing. So I try to avoid rush hours, and I get back home and I tend to eat back home, and then I watch something and hit the bed. That's it. Let me know if you're interested in seeing a day in the life. I would love to film one of those. Okay, Nerd to Fit wrote, what should you consider before starting the program? You should consider, again, that the topic and whatever it is, the title you're pursuing. For example, for me, I switched from industrial engineering to management and technology. You still have to make sure, and this might not be the most appropriate word, but it's the word I'm going to use, that it's sexy for you, that it's something that you really want to have. If you don't really like how it sounds, then maybe you should look for another program. What else? How to choose the supervisor best suited for you. Talk to them and talk around. That's something that I didn't do. And I would strongly recommend that you ask previous students how he or she is, so that you get a feel of what exactly you're getting into. And also take a class with them. That will tell you a lot of how he or she is. What else? Monumentally Conscious asks, how many people you know are currently ABD or newly degrees PhD that are working as associate professors? I think I have met here about 2 or 3 firsthand, and I would totally tell you to go and check out Twitter Tuesdays. I think the 2 Tuesdays back, this is filmed on February 26th, so it would be the one from the 20th and the one from the 13th. We had 2 new professors talking to us about their experience as associate professors. I'll leave the handle somewhere in the screen so you can go and check that out. But yeah, it's a route that many PhDs take to go into academia, and yeah, I hope that answers your question. Also, Monumentally Conscious asks, and how familiar are you with tenure at the university level as well? This Tuesday, so you're watching this on Thursday, so 2 days ago on the 7th, we would have an invited guest over at the MORSC. MORSC is Montreal Operations Research Student Chapter, who's going to tell us about how it is, the whole ordeal of being tenured. So I'll leave it there. Okay, and the late scholar asks, what is the funniest, most awe-inducing thing that has occurred since starting your program, either academically or personally? I thought about this, I'm not gonna lie, and I think that the most funniest or awe-inducing thing that has happened to me while in the program has been that during summer, like 2 summers ago, 1 or 2 summers ago, I used to be at my office since really, really early in the morning. And so I would always come to my office and I would be the first one on the floor, except for someone who was 1 office down, well, 2 doors down, who was always there before me. And I had a whole competition during the summer without even knowing the person, trying to get there before she did. It turned out to be a she, so her name is Elizabeth, and at that time I really didn't know her, and I always tried to get before her, and she won so many times. Like, I don't think I even won once, because she arrived about like 5 in the morning, and I think the earliest I arrived was like 6 a.m. or something like that, and she was already there. So yeah, and afterwards we took a class together and we sort of hit it off, and she's now one of my best friends, and it started like that. So yeah, what's also been the hardest? The hardest thing? I guess the hardest thing was finding out that I was not going to be funded my first year and that my supervisor was switching universities, and in the end, it all worked out, and I am okay now. What else? How have you changed since you began? I would have to say that when I started here at Montreal, I was very, very shy, something that I was not at all when I was in Puerto Rico. And then as the years went by, I started to once again show my personality. I'm a very outgoing person. I tend to talk a lot. And yeah, that's how I changed. I changed back to who I think I truly am. Okay, so 1DGSM Mabena21 asks, what program and school are you in? So I am in the Management and Technology program at the École de Sciences de la Gestion, ESG, at the University of Quebec at Montreal, UQAM, Université du Québec à Montréal. And why do you study what you studied? So I study what I studied because I met a professor who had a very interesting topic who caught my attention. I always knew I wanted to work in humanitarian logistics since I decided to go for a PhD. It was either that or engineering education, but I went for humanitarian logistics. And I have to say I love my topic, and that's the main reason why I decided to go for that. And I also wanted to be on an institution different from what was the norm back in the USA and in Puerto Rico. And I thought that being at a French institution would give me that. What else? How did you find yourself at the school you are? So I went to a conference here in Montreal, actually, the Institute of Industrial Engineers annual conference. And there before I had told my advisor, my master's advisor, that I wanted to do a PhD, and he presented me to one professor who presented me another professor he introduced me to one professor who introduced me to another professor who introduced me to my advisor. And I talked with my advisor, and we were supposed to do a project on humanitarian logistics, and that got me all excited, and that's how I got to apply to the university I'm currently at. And those are all the questions I have from the PhD tag. If you really like this PhD tag and you have any other question, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to make another video about this, and I bet the community would love to as well. Also, I'm gonna pop on the screen some of the other creators and people on Instagram that have blogs, that have YouTube channels that are answering these questions as well. So you can go and check them out and see what they answered and compare notes. And maybe that will give you a more rounded idea, especially for whoever's looking for the family and the children. I cannot give you advice on that. So maybe one of these lovely people can give you advice on that. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave any questions again in the comments below, and I will see you on the next video. Bye!